Don't worry about the salt. This is going to be washed off later. This type of seasoning, we're going to get the salt hot and we're going to get the aromatics in there. It's very Chinese. A lot of different regions that use this kind of flavoring. So I've got some cumin seed. Cumino. Not the powder, the seed. We love it. And then we have some whole peppercorns. Don't go crazy with the peppercorns. They're strong. We're going to do some coriander. Seed. We're going to do a bay leaf or two. And this pepper. This jalapeno. This is one of ours. And it's not smoked. It's just dried, but it was very ripe. We're going to put that in there as well for a little bit of heat. Now, all we're doing, and there's no oil in here, of course, we're toasting up these aromatics. Now you're going to start to hear, I have to talk quietly so that Richard doesn't get animated. You see the salt, the color is starting to darken. Boy, I'll tell you what, I've got some practicing to do before I'm back on this horse, huh? It's starting to darken. And you can hear the seeds popping. Sorry, I was talking too loud. You can hear the seeds popping. You hear that? You want to keep moving it around. I've got it on a medium-high heat. Just because I don't want to stand here all day. But now that it's heated up, I'll probably move it back down. So the salt is going to help keep all those seeds here when they start popping. Because without the salt, they start popping, they go everywhere. And it smells like heaven in here. I can smell the pepper. I can smell the bay leaves. I can smell all of it. And do a quick Google search for aromatics if you're not familiar with them. And you'll find all sorts of options. You got the anise, and you've got the allspice, the Chinese 5 spices. You know, you got all these other kinds of things. You got lots of things you can put in there. Lots of things. All right, I'm going to turn this off. We have to be very quiet. Okay, now, still got to be very quiet. We're going to set the pieces out. And see, we got some moisture coming out. Actually, I'm going to start with that because I want it skin side up. So we're going to start it upside down. Meat side up. These little pieces are going with the carcass. We don't need them here. So then I'll do the, even though the wings are going to be a soup, I'm going to do them the same way that I'm going to do the rest of it. But these knickknacks and whatnots, they don't matter. They're going in the soup pot. Now, we need that salt on our duck. Need to let the salt cool. So we got our salt done. We've put it on, hold on, let's see here, terrible. So we've put it on a breast and a leg quarter. And we're really working it in there. Now, one of the reasons I made so much of that salt is that I can save that now. I can smell the aromatics on it. It's gonna be a wonderful salt, and the longer it sits, it'll probably get better. So I'm gonna save that salt for future use. Now I have this flavor ready to go at all times. Let's hope it's good. So I'm rubbing this salt all in there. Now, this is not just a seasoning method, but it is also a preservative method. Now, I'm not going to cake it in the salt. I'm not going to pack it in there like you would for if you were curing bacon or prosciutto or something. But I am going to get this massaged well on there. We want it covered. Now, don't worry, this is obviously way too much salt, but we are going to rinse all of this off when it comes time. You should probably let this go overnight, but I'm not going to. I'm going to give it enough time for me to finish my soup. Now, back in the fridge they go. Now, we're going to do the duck breast first. I'm going to season the pan, assuming I can find my seasonings. Not too crazy. Not too crazy. Now, the trick with a duck breast is you put it in the pan while the pan is cold. So it loosens up all those fat cells and gets them out to play in the pan rather than sealing it all inside. And then you just have a fatty piece, right? So, here's our breast. I'm gonna lay this down in that cold pan. All right. Now we're going pretty light on the seasonings just because I want to experience every bit of it, but we're going to give it a little bit of salt on this side as well. A little bit of pepper, not a lot. So, in theory, when we turn this burner on, we want it to get really hot. We just don't want it to be really hot when we start. When it gets up to temperature, by the time it gets there, that fat's rendered. It's going to come out in the pan. There's no oil in this pan, no butter, no nothing. It's going to render all that fat and cook in itself. It will brown, and then we will flip it, and we will sear the other side. Into the oven for about 6 minutes or so. This thing is ready to go. Of course, that's the theory, but in the meantime, we need to rinse off our other meat. So, this has been in the fridge for a few hours, well protected by the salt, and I had it at an angle, and I moved it. So it was here first on an angle, just in case any of the fluids run out, because the salt is drawing the fluids out. I can hear that thing sizzling over there. And then I moved it and gave it some more salt. We're essentially curing this thing. We're drying it. You might be able to tell already. If you leave this overnight, this will be firm. But you might be able to tell already that the texture and consistency of the meat is already different than that piece over there. It's flatter. It's a slightly darker color. This is something. But we can't use it in this configuration. Obviously, that would be way too salty. We are going to rinse them and then dry them. Okay, well this one, I think I'll leave that one for a while just to see what happens. Okay, rinsed, and now we're patting dry. Paper towels, that's all. And when you rinse them, don't just run some water over them. You need to really give them a scrubbing. You know, with your hands, of course. Get all that stuff off of there. Now, here we go. That's what she looks like now after a few hours of having been salted. Much flatter and darker color. There's some of these seeds and aromatics in there, but that's a totally different color, isn't it? And so flat. And I'll tell you, as bouncy as that one is, this seems like it'll be easier to deal with too. So I'm gonna put this on the paper towel until we're ready for it, because it's going in next. So just look at it. Look at all that grease. Beautiful. It's beautiful. We're gonna let it go just for a little longer. But man, that looks great. So you see what I did was I'm checking the level of sear. I want it to be crispy and dark, but we don't want it to burn, right? And look at all this fat rendering. That's going to help seal and flavor the other side as well. And while we wait for that, just have a look at how dark that meat is, you know. Just a moment of appreciation for the color of this bird. It's not the only bird that has this color, but very few birds actually just taste like beef, right? All right, let's have a look. Beautiful, beautiful. Look at that. I think that might be the tenderloin there that's kind of squirting out. So there's not enough fat really yet to kind of give it a basting. Not enough yet, but you see it's coming. And we'll just throw that in there and help sear up that little bit. Now that's a big thick breast, so we'll check the sear. We've got a sear. Now this is going in the oven for about 6 minutes. Excellent. I forgot to mention that when you put it in the oven at 375 for 6 minutes, skin side down, please. Now, let's have a look at her. Oh boy, that's pretty. All right, so we've got some resistance, but it's springy. Now, we are not going to cut this yet. It needs to rest. Now we got all this fat in here, right? Well, because we've taken all the moisture and everything out of the other breast, and we're doing it completely different, we're going to do it completely different. Now we've got a hot pan. Pardon me. My goodness. We've got a hot pan. We're going to bring that temperature back up. Let's just see what happens. Let's see. It's not that hot, but it's hotter than the previous one. This is the salted breast. Let's see what happens. Always, always, always brush up on things that you haven't done many times before you do them. Because you only get to do it once. Unless you go buy a whole nother Muscovy, and this is an expensive meal. So brush up. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to know everything all the time. And even if you do know everything all the time, it still pays to look, to read, to brush up. Now, this is salted. I'm not going to salt it. I want to see what happens. There's some salt in the pan. We're going to do a little pepper. Same kind of deal. We're looking for that sear. Now, I'm not sure how the salt, oh, pardon me, I've bumped you. I don't know how the salt and all of that is going to affect the sear. So I'm going to check it slightly more often and try not to burn myself as I continuously grab that handle. And we might have enough, come here you. We might have enough fat reduced. Yeah, we do. So why not? Let's start basting it. So the sear is very different so far. The sear, the skin is whiter, but it's plumping up. Look, as it cooks, it plumps. You can probably see that. It's interesting. One thing I learned the hard way some time ago was never leave the duck. Oh yeah, see that? It's coming. Never leave the duck. The second you walk away from your duck, it's gonna burn or something. Or your timing is wrong. Never leave your duck. I think we're gonna go with a slightly higher temperature now. The skin on the other one didn't get as hot as I would have liked it, or as crisp. And I think we're browned enough there. I don't want to push it. So now, I'm not pressing the duck, I'm just trying to reshape it. It curled up quite a bit here. So, we'll do something like this. All that fat in there. And a little bit of that crispy. I've never been great at doing this. I'm getting better. But lots of practice. So that's going to help sear the sides and stuff that aren't hitting the pan. Look at that. We're almost there. I'm going to turn it so I can get a better scoop on it. You really shouldn't, if you're trying to get a sear, you probably shouldn't play with it so much, but see that? We're searing and sealing off the side. All those places that are never going to touch the pan, they're getting seared as well. Alright. That should do. We don't need a great deal of sear on that side. Excellent. Now, into the oven. 6 minutes at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. So we should probably discuss the soup a little bit before that's ready. Now, these are pink oyster mushrooms that I grew earlier this year, I suppose, late winter, or it might have been last year, I don't know. Very mushroomy, very pretty pink mushrooms, kind of orangish now, but I'm gonna put a few of these, just a few, you don't need many, in the bottom of that bowl. And then I'm gonna put some of that soup in there. I wanted to go ahead and get that started because I want these mushrooms to rehydrate in that soup, and oh my goodness, does that smell good. So we're gonna put that right there. Actually, we shouldn't do that because we're about to have to do some cutting, aren't we? Baste it a little bit. Basting. I'm singing like a weirdo. All right, folks, here comes number 2. The salt experiment. Oh boy, that's pretty. Look at that. Look how it clumped. Interesting. They're similar but different, aren't they? And look at all that duck fat that you're getting. That's just from the 2 breasts right there. We added no oil, no butter, no nothing. That right there, man, what you couldn't do with that. Woo! Think of it like bacon grease, only maybe better in some cases. So this one needs to cool. Oh, look at that. Wow. So this skin is fine. It's okay, but it's not as crispy. But this skin is crispy. That's amazing. I think this one is ready to go. So I'm going to turn you a little bit, just a wee, and I'm going to try to cut this in such a way that you can see it. Oh, you know what? We should make a sauce, shouldn't we? Let's make a sauce. Just a wee sauce. We ain't getting crazy. I'm gonna get this little ramekin. This sauce here is simple. Anybody can do it. Man, I'm going through some spoons, going through all these spoons. Now, this is marmalade. I believe it's kumquat marmalade. Never know around here. I have so many jars of jelly. Yep, that's kumquat marmalade. I can see the pieces of the peel. In those marmalades, we use the peel instead of pectin, right? So this is just sugar and fruit. And these are our kumquats, which we didn't get any this year because the frost gave us a beating last winter. So I don't want to do a lot of this because the kumquat marmalade is running low, but we're going to do enough. Citrus and duck are great together. We'll put that back in the fridge. Y'all just kind of hanging out with me all day, it turns out. Now, this here, it's very popular in the barbecue circles right now. I'm sure it's popular in other ways. This is fantastic. It's almost like a teriyaki, but not quite. And you use it on as a sauce, like a, well, again, like a soy sauce or anything else. So we're gonna put a little bit of that in there. And give her a mix up. I got some on the cutting board. See that? That's not Instagram worthy there. Not at all. We're blowing it here. All right, and we give her a taste. Golly, ridiculous. Wow. That's ridiculous. Holy cow, that's good. Now, keep in mind, remember folks, I don't have a sharp knife in my house. All right, so we're gonna try to cut this now. Wish me luck. Oh yeah. Terrible knife. I'm gonna go ahead and cut the whole thing. Interesting. Bring her over. The camera's in the way, so but I want you to watch it. I want you to be able to see it. You know, that's what we're here for after all, right? All right, let's have a look at this here. Let's just spread this out, and I probably should have cut it the other way. Now, if you're like me, you like rare. Wow. This is the end piece, so it's going to be right in there with the most cooked pieces. And look at that, perfect. Tell me that doesn't look like roast beef. Or a roast, I should say. Now, let's try it by itself. Mmm. Wow. It's beef. Like, if you get, well, obviously I would know now. On the back end, there's a distinct flavor, but while you're chewing it, you're not going to be able to tell whether that's pork or beef or what that is. You definitely aren't going to think, well, that's a waterfowl. No way, Jose. Now look here. So the tenderloin, I think, is what this is here. And I would take that off when you cook it, just so it cooks more evenly. Like that one, it performs a little better. Into the sauce. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. Hey. It needs salt though. Definitely needs salt. What's wrong with this salt? Alright, let me get another salt. That salt's not salting properly. Give me a second, I got salt right here. Not to worry. And you know what? Let's give it a little pepper. This is ridiculous. Really ridiculous. But look at all the juice we lost. I would say this needs to rest even longer. But we're not going to do that. And we're not going to rest this one any longer either because I can't wait. Let's see here. This skin is definitely crispy. Oh wow. Listen to that crispy skin crisp. Ah. I would say the strangest thing is the smell of it is very different. It wasn't prepared for the smell, and it doesn't taste like it smells. All right, look at that again. Probably could have gone a little longer. It's a little raw on the bottom. Doesn't bother me any at all, I assure you. So in the center of this one, that's interesting. So maybe a little bit longer on the sear, and that would have solved that problem. But let's see how she tastes, because that's the important thing, isn't it? So it looks like this one cooks up about the same, but the skin is crispier. Interesting. By itself. Wow. That was tough. That was tough. I think we got that little connective tissue there. All right. So with that one, it's very salty. Very, very salty. I couldn't eat it salty, but it's quite salty. So, now you remember, everything we do is an experiment, right? And we talked earlier about how to solve the saltiness of an item by adding water, right? So we're just gonna dilute it. Look here, bugs. So, I don't even need to try it in there because that's sweet. That will settle the salt, but we got to settle it more. So what are we going to do? Well, we are going to put that piece into the soup. I don't want to do all of it right now because I may not be done experimenting. Now, the soup, if the soup was hot and boiling, it would be a wonderful reason for this to be raw. Look at those pink oyster mushrooms. And that level of rare there, I'm all for it. But if you put it into your hot soup, it's going to cook it. And you know that, right? So let's try this soup then and see how the broth is. Not like we don't already know. Oh my goodness gracious. That's ridiculous. That right there, that's one of the best soups I've ever tasted. And look at the colors. Is that beautiful? Let's try one of these mushrooms. These rehydrated mushrooms in the broth. Oh wow. Oh my goodness. That's the whole earth right there. Oh man, what flavor. And the mushrooms seem to absorb all of the best parts of that. Now, look, because the broth is warm, it's not hot, but it's warm. We started with a crispier skin, so the skin isn't unpleasant. It's kind of working. I'm going to take a bite of this now. Yeah. Yeah, I think we just got the connective tissue before, because that was tender. Look. Tender. And it's still a little salty, but it's nowhere near as salty as it was. It's just lovely in here. I'm being very rude. I'm eating like an animal. But, wow. So I'm going to put those pieces back in there. All right, so the camera, get out of here. You kids just came home, doors open. My camera's giving up. But I think we've answered all of the questions that we had, at least for now. What can you do with a Muscovy duck? Well, with just the carcass and 2 breasts, I'm feeding 4 people. And I'm feeding them in a heavenly fashion. This is ridiculous.